And we are live. Welcome everyone to Deno Sessions. Today we have Luca and Leo with us. We're going to be talking about Deno KV, maybe do a little demo, and just answer all of your questions that you might have about Deno KV for the hackathon. So while we get started, Leo and Luca, how are you guys? How's your week been so far?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, it's super sunny weather this week. Been spending a lot of time in the sun.
Nice.
Doing nice.
Remind everyone where you're from. Where you're working from.
Yeah, I'm working from the Netherlands, so usually I'm in the pouring rain. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, the weather here is also terribly warm. Luckily today it's been quite cold, so that's a nice change.
Nice. And Leo, you're in Venice, right?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. It's summertime. Summer is in full swing. Yeah, we are heading towards the longest day of the year. I'm surprised that it's cool in Venice. I think usually right now it's pretty hot and humid.
Yeah, I think today is just a one-off. Just
a cold snap.
Lucky you for getting one off today.
Well, I'm calling in from Los Angeles, and LA around this time of year is usually around like 80 to 90 degrees. But this has been an unusual year, and it's very cool. It's been cloudy. It's rained a little bit. So it's like right around 60s. Me and my jackets are not mad. I love the cool weather. I love wearing jackets. So. All right. Yeah. So, the first day, the second day of the Deno KV Hackathon, and we've already got a lot of people interested in building stuff. I've personally had to invite like 20 plus people off the KV waitlist, which is pretty exciting. And yeah, so I thought today, we can just chat about Deno KV, basically, share a little bit about the roadmap. And just answer any questions that we might have in Discord and on YouTube.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so I know, Luca, you're currently working a lot on KV and deploy. Like anything, that you're currently working on that you want to share?
Yeah. Everything I'm going to share, as usual, take it with a grain of salt, and there's no promise that anything that I'm saying is actually going to happen. But things that we're thinking about are a lot of the feedback that we've gotten for KV, right? Like we have this closed beta program so that people can try out KV and give us feedback, and we've gotten a lot of very great feedback. Some things small and simple things, some things complicated big features, and we're prioritizing which ones to tackle here. But just off the top of my head, there was a lot of people asked about a list API that supported listing just keys without the values. So that's something that'll be coming soon. There was a lot of people that wanted to store larger values in KV, larger than 64 kilobyte limit. So maybe that's coming. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe you can use KV to store very large items. We'll see. That's what we're working on. We're working on a finer grained control over data replication and data storage. We've heard from a lot of people that they're concerned about data locality. Let's say you're a company in the EU and you're operating in the EU under EU data protection requirements that require that you store your data within the EU. We're going to give you controls to be able to decide where your data is stored, where your data is replicated, to sort of fit exactly your needs. And yeah, we're going to be announcing pricing for KV pretty soon here, which will allow us to lift the limits on the 1 gigabyte database limit that we have right now. And yeah, we're also going to announce many other cool things that are not quite ready to talk about yet.
Yeah, so in short, a lot of cool stuff coming up. This is what I heard. I think the choosing your data center is huge. I was recently in Europe, and they have this whole GDPR thing. which is, it's great for consumer privacy and data privacy and stuff. But, after the 10th website, I had to accept cookies. I was like, you know what, just take my data. I'm actually okay. Just here's my social security number. Here's my bank information. Like, you know what, just stop it with the pop-up modals. I'm good. I'm good. And once I got back to America, I was like, oh, thank God, take my data. I don't want to be bothered by little cookie pop-up. But yeah, no, I think it's, having those fine-tuned controls in our in KV, I think is going to be really important for a lot of our developers who are building businesses with in KV. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and there's other use cases for it too, right? Like what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to move around your primary instance of the database. The primary instance is the region where data is written. This is not a single instance. This is an entire region. But right now, every KV database has its primary in the US. But if the majority of your customers are in Japan or in Europe or in India or in Australia or somewhere far away from the US, then all your writes still have to do this round trip all across the world, which maybe is not great. So we'll give you more control to decide exactly where you, how you want to manage performance of reads versus writes and data locality and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. It's really all comes down to performance for developer and for users. I'm getting a comment from Jared Urban. The cookie thing is because of e-privacy and not the GDPR. Thank you so much. I was railing against the wrong thing. E-privacy. That's really where I should be directing my anger towards. Let me take a quick look. I'm just gonna look for questions. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I mentioned before, feel free to drop them into the YouTube chat. And since this is the day 2 of the hackathon, we'd love to hear what you're working on. Luca is one of the judges, so now is your time to pitch your ideas and get him on your good side. Yeah. One question from Mike, off topic, but how is CPU time counted for isolates? I guess is a deploy question.
CPU time is allocated per request. So every request has a fixed amount of CPU time, and if you go over the CPU time in aggregate, so not every request goes over the CPU time, but let's say you have 100 requests, and those 100 requests on average go over the 50 millisecond CPU time limit, then we will suspend your deployment. And yeah, that's how CPU time works. And CPU time is not the same thing as real time. Real time that's wall clock time. That's like how long something takes in the real world. CPU time is like how many ticks of the processor does your script require. So if you're sitting there waiting for a response from the database or waiting for an API call to finish, that doesn't count towards your CPU time. CPU time is only things that where your code is actually executing, not where you're waiting for I/O to happen.
That makes sense. Yeah. So it's really, when Mike is asking, if I use 3 milliseconds, wait for 30 seconds, and then use 5 milliseconds, the isolate will live for this long. Like it'll wait for
that's right.
Yeah. Great. Another question from MLG Pro, will it be possible to use the deployed KV store instance from localhost sometime in the future?
Yeah, I will make no comment because I can't spoil all the fun things up front always. So people always get very upset at me if I spoil everything. So
yes, keep your cards close to your chest. That's a great question. But stay tuned. Let me see if there's anything else. I think we had a question from Jared.
Let me say we hear you loud and clear.
Yes. Message received. This is a question from Jared before the stream. He asks, thanks for doing AMA. How do we see the production KV store? So maybe a question on migrations or populating the KV stored. What are the best practices for doing something like that right now?
Yeah, so right now the approach that, right now the best approach is that you set up a endpoint on your server on Deno deploy, like a separate HTTP endpoint that you can post data to, and then this posted data gets ingested into the database, and you write the logic that takes the data from this posted, the data that you posted and ingests this into the database. And you probably want to have some authentication on this. And then you can locally just push up a JSON file or whatever other data format that you're pushing up, and then have that be inserted.
Yes, and I don't know if I'm saying too much about it, but I think eventually we will have an easier way of just importing stuff into the database, importing and exporting. But yeah, until now you'd have to create a little way to ingest that. Sahil Pradhan is asking about the hackathon. Yeah, so the hackathon is this week, started yesterday. And the final submissions are this Thursday at noon Pacific. And I can drop a link to the blog post that has all the details. But basically, anything that you make, as long as open source, uses Deno KV and is deployed on Deno Deploy, will be a fine project to submit. And if you're interested in finding teammates or you need some people to come up with ideas, our Discord is very active. Just join the KV channel, and or you can just DM me, and then I'll help you. I'll put you in touch with someone to help you with that. We got a question from Chris Knight. Will you be able to share a KV store between different deploy applications within your account? And I think I've seen this question a few times.
There's probably. You can't right now, but yeah, we're working on a lot more control over how your databases work, which branches get attached to which databases, whether your preview branches read from the production database or some other database, whether some branches maybe have read-only access to certain databases. There's a lot of things hopefully coming in the future there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a lot of people are interested in something like that. And then on a similar note, Isra is asking, is there plans for having something like a relation database? What they're trying to do is store posts within users and users within posts and vice versa.
So secondary indexing. We don't support any relational database right now. I'm not going to say we'll never support a relational database. Right now, we have this Deno KV key value store. If you do want to do secondary indexes in Deno KV, that is totally possible. There's some great documentation in our manual, and I think we have a couple of blog posts which have secondary indexes. I'm sure we can throw them up in the show notes somewhere.
Yes, I'll have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that note, secondary indexes. I'll drop a blog post that we have about that, and all of what you're describing, Israel, can be done in KV currently. But yeah, it'll take a little bit of a design on how you interface with KV to be able to accomplish that. But I will drop a blog post about that.
Yeah, I think one important thing to remember, right, is KV is not a stupid cache store, right? Like, if this is a production database, this is a database that has atomic transactions. It has atomic reads. This is very capable of. It has key versioning, so there's a lot of control over how your data is stored and read, which allows you to do things like secondary indexes.
I'm looking at the Discord. We have a few questions here. This is a question about pricing. I don't know how much we can reveal about pricing, but from Yuri G, the pricing from KV, will it be separate from Deno Deploy, or is it all in one?
I can share a little bit on this. The pricing for Deno KV will be usage-based, just like all of our other pricing. So the more KV that you use, the more you will pay. And if you stay within our feature limits, you won't pay anything at all. So it works just like deploy.
Great. And finally, is there a way to read or log the CPU time used for a call? This is a question about optimizing code.
No, there's currently no such way. If you do run into issues with CPU time limit errors, please contact the port and we'll help debug it.
Awesome. A question about KV from Mike again. Will we get expiring values like in KV, like Cloudflare KV has?
So I guess this is about time to live values. Yeah. So I can't share too much about that, but there's a couple of features that we have coming up that will allow you to implement TTLs on values. They won't work quite the same way as they do in other KV stores, just because time to live on proper databases means that there's questions about like when exactly the time to live happens and whether you could possibly have inconsistent reads. So we need to make sure that all of our implementations of time to live do not suffer from like weird inconsistency problems. But yeah, we'll be releasing a feature soon that should allow you to do TTL, and I'm sure we'll have it in the announcement blog post.
Yes, that seems like a big thing, and you know, as with all of our updates with KV, we'll definitely make an announcement, either on our blog or through the deploy change logger on Twitter. Here's a question from Craig. Hello, Craig. When you're paginating KV data in a fresh app, what's the best way to pass the cursor string between pages?
So what you can do is you pass the cursor string in the query parameter. So let's say you have a /users endpoint. You could have a question mark cursor equals your cursor there. And at the bottom of your page, you have a next page button, and that next page button essentially teleports you to the users page with the new cursor of at the end of your current list. And if you keep doing that, you will eventually reach the end of the list.
Yeah, I think we might have an example of this somewhere, right? Fresh pagination KV. Craig, I'll take a look and I'll send you a link. I think I've seen that before, but if not, you know, I think that's a interesting use case example. Definitely, could be something great for the hackathon. I'm going to take a quick break from answering questions. We can resume that in a little bit, but just wanted to chat casually with Luke and Leo. What are some KV ideas or projects that you'd like to see out of this hackathon? Leo, you can go first.
That's a good question. I mean, as I mentioned yesterday already, it would be cool to see people taking the showcases, the legacy showcases that we did, and since they were made with Superbase, maybe to rewrite them or make similar apps using KV instead. I think that would be a nice application.
Yeah, and we have quite a few different showcase apps. We got like the Meet Me Calendly clone. We have the chat app, real-time chat app. And yeah, there's a few out there. So yeah, I think all those are great candidates. For trying something with KV. How about you,
Yeah.
Luca?
Oh man, so many things.
Yeah.
Like I think we've seen quite a few to-do apps. That's always cool, but I feel like maybe we're done with to-do for a while. I saw something really cool today, which was somebody that implemented WebAuthn logins. So that's the new passkeys thing we've maybe been hearing about from Apple and Google and all those people.
Right.
He implemented a WebAuthn login system on top of Deno KV and Fresh. That was really cool. I wonder if I can find the link to that. I'll share it if I can.
Yeah, I'll drop it into the YouTube chat.
Yeah, I think more real-time applications be really cool. We have this pixel page demo, which allows you to sort of have like a Reddit r/place clone. It's like a little grid, and you can paint pixels in it, and it real-time updates for everybody that's viewing the page. I think like a shared canvas would be really cool. Something like Excalidraw with like multiple users. I think that's super cool. A note-taking application, like a Markdown note-taking application with multiple cursors that people can write in collaboratively and have it saved, and like has sign-in, and you can like share notes with specific people, or you can make notes public. Maybe it even has a Markdown like render that you can do. I think that would be really cool also.
Yeah, I think like a a very simple Markdown sharing app where you can just like drag and drop images and stuff, that creates a unique URL, would be awesome.
Yeah.
There's like so many of those like note taking apps like that just they do what they want, but they charge like $5 a month, and it's like I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. It'd be really cool if everybody could just like fork a GitHub repo, deploy to deploy, and then they have their own note-taking app at, I don't know, notes.myowndomain.com.
That's cool. I like that. Turning my attention back to the chats, we have some questions come up. Craig's asking, is someone making like are we building a GUI over KV? Is that something that we're working on?
So there's a UI that allows you to view values in the Deno deploy dashboard. If you click on the KV tab in your project view, you can view the contents of your database there. It's not allowed to edit values, but yeah. Other than that, we currently have no UI for Deno KV.
I've seen some projects on Twitter where people have built a visualization for KV. I can share them here because I think those are pretty interesting, especially the way that they visualize it, basically just like a little file structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like key visualizers, ORMs, that kind of thing, Deno KV, super cool. I'd love to see more of those.
Definitely. And, we mentioned this yesterday for the hackathon, like it doesn't have to be a user-facing application. It could be a library. It could be, some framework or some abstraction, an ORM. All that is fair game. So definitely we're excited to see like what you guys are interested in building. Just going through the questions right now. Let's see. Jared has a question. How can broadcasting and KV work together to make real-time apps? I think we do have a few examples of this in our showcase.
Yeah, we have many examples actually. I think the Pixel Page example does this. The To-Do app does this. There's another one. I forget what it is. I think all the ones on the KV homepage actually do this. Let me just take a look real quick. What's the third one here? The third one is
the tic-tac-toe.
Right, yeah, the tic-tac-toe. They all do broadcast channel. If you can dive into the source code there. Essentially what you do is you perform the insert into the database, and then once the insert is completed, you send a notification on the broadcast channel that there's a new value. And then anybody that's listening to that broadcast channel can then get the updated value and display that. And you transfer values between the client and the server. You can use either WebSockets or event source or any number of other things.
Yeah, I think what we've seen in our Deno KV surveys and stuff, a lot of people are interested in using Deno KV to build multiplayer games. And I think using broadcast channel with KV will definitely unlock a lot of interesting things that you can do, especially when it comes to real-time multiplayer stuff. So definitely open to those types of projects for the hackathon.
Yep.
All right, we got a question from Magnus. Magnus is asking, will there at some point be where you can load and then calculate after the atomic, like a Firebase transaction? It will repeat until it succeeds.
I get what you mean. So atomic thumb and let me see. Yeah. So I think there's two parts to this. One is within atomic transactions, being able to get values after or before the transaction actually processes, like within a single round trip. This is something that we're thinking about, and there's a lot of use cases. We've seen a lot of feedback around this, especially like you have a counter that you increment, then you want to get the new value after increment, and display that somewhere. I don't know, a Facebook like button or something. And then the other thing is transactions that like interactive transactions. And interactive transactions are things that this is what you're familiar with from SQL, for example, where you can retrieve some value, you can process it, you then insert into the database, return some other value, do some more processing. And if any of these fails, everything that happened before gets rolled back. And these interactive transactions are something that you can already do with Deno KV through atomics, but they, yeah, there's more work that you have to put in, right? Because you have to retry things if they fail, because everything is optimistic. So yeah, there's some ways we're thinking about making it easier to write interactive transactions, but there's nothing I can share on that right now.
Yeah, thanks for that very, very thorough response. Yeah, I think people who are building more advanced use cases definitely are using these, ACID transactions, and yeah, this is something that is awesome to have, especially when building production ready businesses and things like that. So anything that we can do to make that a little simpler is great. Another question. We have a question from Lino. What is the overhead for broadcast channels? Would opening and closing a lot of them in an instance cause issues? That's a great question.
Nope. Open as many as you want. Actually, it's better if you open more broadcast channels with, like, there's a church in the background. There's no more church in the background. It's gone. Yeah, it's actually better if you open more of them and subscribe to, like, if each user or each project or each to-do list or each thing that you want to notify for has its own broadcast channel that allows us to optimize these more effectively internally. So the lowest granularity that you can get away with. Sometimes you want to have like a list of, you want to have a homepage that shows all of the recent projects. So you need to have a broadcast channel that gets all of the recent projects broadcasted to it when a new one is created, for example. And yeah, for that, like, there's less granularity, but generally try to be as granular as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sahil's asking, which database can I use in this hackathon? I mean, it is in the name of the hackathon, Deno KV. You technically could use Deno KV for like one thing and then use some other database. Like, we'll still accept that submission, but our intent here really is to see how creative you can be in using in building with Deno KV. So yeah. We have Soham asking, any chance of getting Next.js running on Deno? Interesting question. Thoughts from Luca or Leo on this?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Leo, you can comment on how to get Next.js running in the CLI. Oh, the church is still switching.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're still continuously working on improving the CLI, node compatibility, and NPM modules compatibility. And we are making progress. So it's more like we will definitely at some point. It's just a matter of when we'll come around to specifically pointing, or rather focusing on Next.js. But step by step, we're getting there. Supporting other packages will get us closer to supporting Next.js, obviously.
Yeah, just this week we got a bunch of new packages supported. Like Puppeteer is working now. It's been something that many people have been asking for. Like you've been able to use Vite out of the box for a long time now.
Discord.js works now as well.
Discord.js works now. There's there's a lot of things that you can use NPM compatibility for, and it's growing by the day. Especially if you're building not with frameworks like Next.js, but rather if you have your own Express or Fastify application that just pulls in some packages from NPM, or if you have a Deno first application that just pulls in some packages from NPM to do certain computational work, for example, those will work in most cases. And I think it's more the exception now that something does not work than that it does work.
That's great.
It's just tying it together in the full, like the complexity of Next.js or Remix or Astro or something like that. There's just a lot that needs to work perfect for that to work correctly. But we're getting there.
We're getting there. And is there a place where we're like announcing when new NPM modules are supported?
I'm not sure if we announce it specifically anywhere. Usually in our release blog posts, when we mention node compatibility improvements, we'll mention what kind of packages have started working now. And if you file a specific issue about a specific package not working, and we fix it and it starts working, the issue will be closed, so you'll be notified there. So if you have a specific package that isn't working or that you're waiting for, look if there's an issue, subscribe yourself to it. And if there's no issue, create a reproduction for us and open an issue, subscribe yourself to it, and you'll get notified when it's fixed.
Yeah, really, node compatibility is just, there's just thousands of edge cases that we're basically working towards and fixing, and eventually, Next.js is the goal. So yeah.
There's also another question about Node crypto support. I mean, most of the Node crypto API is now supported. Majority of the use cases are supported. There's some small APIs that currently do not work yet. So if you have a specific package that really requires those APIs that currently are not implemented, there is an open issue about Node crypto support, I believe. So do leave a comment there, and maybe we will prioritize it depending on what package it is.
Great. Yeah. We have another question from Raven. Will KV work on Deno deploy like a DynamoDB partition? I meant PK/SK where 0 kilobytes correspond to a partition. I'm not totally sure I understand this question.
So, okay, I think this is about, well, PK and SK are primary key and secondary key, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So partitioning in Deno KV is completely transparent. So you don't ever have to think about it. Don't think about it. Everything happens under the hood automatically. And generally, if you want to get really technical, generally data that has a common prefix, so data that has the same prefix, is going to be stored physically closer to each other, which makes querying for that data together slightly faster. But yeah, you usually don't have to worry about this. If you do, please contact support, and we'd love to know your use case.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people are looking at Deno KV, and they're rightfully comparing it to other solutions out there, Dynamo, Redis, things like that. We will be we will have some content about comparing different cloud database services from a metrics performance perspective, as well as just general like API design perspective. So stay tuned for that. I think something like that might be able to answer some of those questions. We have one question. When will KV be available for projects in an organization? And I think we're in a closed beta. So if you want access to it, please join the closed beta. And if you're interested in getting access to it for the hackathon, send me a DM on Discord, and I'll be sure to invite you off that waitlist.
Yeah, and if you're specifically wondering about organizations currently, you can't enroll organizations through the waitlist flow, but if you are a paid customer and you would like to enroll an organization, please reach out to support and we'll sort that out.
Yep. We have a question about Deno first packages, and I know this is something that our team is currently thinking about. The question is, how do you guys feel about Deno first packages? I feel like as NPM compatibility improves, nobody will make a package for Deno first. Does this bother you guys, or do you view it differently?
Yeah, I don't think that's correct. I think that we'll see a lot more packages like so there's I think there's not just Deno first and NPM first. There's also like web first, right? And web first means that like whatever you write for the web will run in Deno and it will run in other environments that emulate the web. And I think Deno first and web first have a very large overlap. Like there's very little that you write that's specific to Deno. It's very easy to feature test for Deno, to have progressive enhancement in your libraries for when you're running within Deno or when you're running within a browser. It's much more difficult in Node, for example. So I think what we'll see a lot more of is libraries that intend to work on the web first, like where their primary target is not Node, but their primary target is like WinterCG runtimes that support fetch natively out of the box, that support maybe the web file system API out of the box eventually, or that support local storage or some other subset of the web APIs that's compatible across server runtimes. And then I also think that we're going to see a lot more libraries that are really truly Deno first. There's a lot of advantages why one may want to use Deno over using other runtimes. For example, Deno has significantly more modern APIs. Like there's a lot less backwards compatibility stuff that you need to deal with when you're using Deno. You can use promises all the way down. You have a bunch of built-in tooling, and you have features like Deno KV that do not have alternatives in other runtimes. So yeah, you can, and then there's the part where writing code for Deno first, you can still compile it back to be supported in Node through our DNT Deno Node transform system. And actually, just the last week, I've seen 2 people messaging me on Twitter about an application or a library that they were writing Deno first and are still publishing on NPM through DNT. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think it's such a great distinction that you made, Luca, of framing it like not Deno versus Node first, but rather web first versus like, whatever Node is. But yeah, I think, thinking about like as web technologies are being modernized, we're seeing more and more platforms like Deno Deploy, which are V8 isolates, and being able to build something for that context natively, that's web compatible. I think that really is like where web development's heading towards. So it makes a lot of sense that you'd want to make something that is web first and web compatible. So looking through the questions. Craig. There is some talk about Fresh 1.2 coming soon. What can we expect from the new version?
Yeah,
I'm not care about this, but yeah, go for it, Luca.
Great question. There's a bunch of stuff, which is really cool. Like there is going to be really awesome new support for sharing state between islands using Preact signals. There's some performance improvements. There's nice usability improvements. You can now nest signal or nest islands and folders. If you have a lot of islands, that's yeah, nice. I forget. I was writing the blog post yesterday, and there was a lot of stuff in it, but I don't remember it anymore. So I guess you're gonna have to stay tuned.
Yeah, the blog post will drop this week sometime. We're very excited. We have a lot of exciting news about Fresh, and not just about 1.2, but also Fresh going forward. That will be addressed in the blog post, so stay tuned for that. All right, Ethan, I will share the KV visualizer as soon as I find the link. I have to dig through Twitter mentions, so let me just do that first. Okay, a question from Mike. This is interesting. Can we have collapsed imports in denoland/x? Store the whole ES zip. Leo, do you have any thoughts on that?
Is there more concrete use case and example of what exactly is being meant here?
Yeah, I think, Mike, if you want to share more details about your question about the collapsed imports in denoland X, that would help us answer your question. This also from Mike. I've already experienced one denoland/x module that didn't work because one of its imports didn't serve the file anymore. So maybe it has to do with
Caching, yeah.
caching, yeah.
There's work that we're putting. I can't comment too much on that right now because we're still working on it. But yeah, we have made some announcements in the past of things that we're working on for Deno 2.0 that will hopefully alleviate the situation. That'll make it easier to, especially with Node specifiers, will make it easier to rely on Node specifiers to import NPM packages, or sorry, NPM specifiers to import NPM packages rather than having to rely on third-party registries. So yeah, hopefully downtime is going to be less there. And there's also, we've also been thinking about things like marking modules that don't rely on third-party dependencies. And actually, I'm not sure, we have the dependency sidebar right now, right, Leo?
Yes, we do have dependency information.
Yeah, so if you visit any module on denoland X, you can view in the sidebar what dependencies it has. And you can decide to only use modules that rely on registries that you're comfortable with using.
As a warning for that, I believe that dependencies regarding std are currently not being shown, but I think that's the least concerning case.
Yep.
But
Here's another question. We've heard this question before, but will there be a way to make use of KV outside of Deno deploy, i.e. using a self-hosted foundation DB?
So you can use Deno KV locally in your project using the built-in SQLite version of Deno KV. We currently don't plan to open source the Foundation DB backed version of Deno KV, but it is possible to implement this yourself if you wanted to. And yeah, as we answered earlier, we're thinking about how you can access Deno, a Deno KV instance on Deno deploy locally through a local Deno CLI or through a Deno CLI hosted on Google Cloud Run or Flutter.io or anywhere else. And we'll have more to share very soon. And also, if I can sort of like guarantee you that if you want to run Foundation DB yourself because you think it's cheaper, I 100% guarantee you it is not. Foundation DB is very, very expensive to run. And if there's reasons why you cannot run Foundation DB, why you cannot run Deno KV on our managed Deno deploy, please let us know. We'd love to learn more.
That's right. You heard it here first, folks. Do not try this at home. It will be expensive. Just use
like,
KV.
No. I'm saying, like, please do try it at home and spend the next 6 weekends working on it. It'll be fun. It's very fun. It's a really fun project. You'll learn a lot about databases, but also it'll be expensive. So make sure to have the money for it.
There you go. We have another question from Jared. This is an interesting question, pretty open-ended. How does KV fit into the open web? I think first let's define what the open web is, because I think a lot of people are curious about that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the open web, as I would define it, is the sort of shared common APIs that are available, that are standardized and available across different runtimes. And then by extension, the APIs that are being standardized or the APIs that are being experimentally tried out that make use of other web standard APIs. And I think Deno KV fits into this not because it is something that is standardized to exist in browsers or to exist in other runtimes, but rather because of like the way that it stores values, for example. Like Deno KV stores regular JavaScript objects in the same way that IndexedDB does by serializing them with structured clone. This is very familiar if you've used IndexedDB in the browser, for example, or if you've used workers, or if you've used broadcast channel. It all has the same like way of serializing values that's going to be familiar to you. And building on the same common subset is, I think, what makes, even though Deno KV is relatively novel and like does not really have a direct replacement on the web, makes it something that feels approachable, that feels like you understand what's happening here. Like it works with promises. It has like just strings and numbers and booleans and unit arrays, things that like you know from the web. In its keys, you can store any sort of value that you can store in IndexedDB. And yeah, I think that's it, like uses async iterators to list over values. I think that's a big part of it. And then there's the possibility that something like Deno KV can get onto a standards track at some point, right? Maybe it won't be called Deno KV then, but this sort of API is not something that we have a primitive for right now in browsers, and maybe we should.
Yeah, and Luca is involved in a lot of standardization committees, and I think yeah, we're innovating here on the KV, and I think pushing the boundaries of like what the common API web APIs should look like. Obviously, all of your input is super valuable in helping us shape what those APIs look like. But obviously, everything is trending towards making programming as simple as possible, as fun as possible. So that's really the overarching vision. And another point to add to that, I think is really interesting, is that a lot of front-end developers who are using Deno, they're always like, oh, I never considered doing database operations, but because of our API, we're making it super approachable. A lot of front-end devs are like, oh, I can actually be a full-stack dev. I can create a database. I can do all sorts of fun things that typically a back-end dev would do. So yeah, we're very excited. We're very excited for seeing how people come to Deno KV and find ways to use it.
Yeah.
We are coming up to the end of the hour. There's a few questions left. We'll answer those questions, and and yeah, we'll leave it at that. But if you have any questions that we aren't able to get to during the session, feel free to drop them into the Discord channel. Someone will definitely answer you. Yeah. Someone's asking, will KV store files in the future? A file, I guess, like file types and stuff. And this is similar to the question before about, I think, blob storage, but yeah. What is our response to that? How suspicious. So that is the response. That's the official response to that. Stay tuned. We have a lot in store in Deno KV, and we have a lot of exciting updates. One final question from Craig. Craig asks, what's the best way to store dates, both dates and date times, in KV so you can have a chronological index?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now the best approach is to store them as strings. store them as like RFC3339 encoded strings. Whatever you get from 2 UTC date time. No, I forget what the one is. 2 ISO string. There's like some method on date that gets you back a UTC string. And yeah, temporal will be coming later this year. Temporal is the new JavaScript data API, and that's going to be fully integrated with Deno KV once it launches. And you'll be able to use that for more structured date storage.
Great. Yeah. String temporal is going to be very exciting. Looking forward to that. And one final question from Who Knows. I read on one post about some Deno pub sub. Is that a thing? Will it be? Yeah. Do we have that API?
Yes, we have broadcast channel, which is a one-to-many or many-to-many actually sort of event bus system, which you can use for real-time data. And then there's a separate product, an attachment to Deno KV that'll allow you to do event processing. That'll be coming, later this soon. That will be coming soon. You may be able to. There's some. If you're really interested, you can find some references to it in the open source repository, and probably try it out in Deno 1.35.
Awesome.
So we'll have a big announcement blog post once that lands.
Yes, awesome. Yes, all the things that we've talked about in this video, in this live stream. Whenever we land a new feature, don't worry, you'll find out. It'll be on our blog. It'll be on our change log, which if you haven't seen, I'll drop a link to that. But also on our Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, please give us a follow. We post all of our new updates there. And yeah, that's it for the live stream. Thank you, Leo and Luca, for joining me and answering all these awesome questions about Deno KV, Deno in general, and things like that. And if you, like I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Discord. We'll be sure to answer them. And yeah, we're very excited to see what you build for the hackathon. Leo, do you live in a jungle? What is that?
I don't know. Today, the bird life outside is very active. I have no clue why.
Amazing.
At least the birds are still alive.
Nature is healing. Yeah, that's it for the broadcast. I will chat with you guys online.
Right.
See you guys.
Yo, folks.
See ya.